On this week's Gridiron Report, we have the NBA draft lottery that actually didn't affect the Detroit Pistons for the first time. We have a historic run by one specific Tigers pitcher and a few miscellaneous stuff to wrap up the show, so let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim, from the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud, champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Media. Today is Wednesday, May 14th. We have a great show for you guys today, but before we get into all the good stuff we have, I want to just take a quick moment to say thank you and to apologize to our listeners for last week's episode. If you did listen to last week's episode, you know that Kyle was actually in town. We had a wedding to go to last week, so we were both in studio. It was the first time we've ever recorded in studio. With that came a number of different technical issues and technical hiccups that I thought we were prepared for. When we ended up going to editing it, that last week's episode, there was a decent amount of issues that I ended up seeing. And to be honest with you, the episode itself was not up to standard, at least up to our standards. So I apologize to all of our listeners that fought through last week's episode. If you're listening to this week's episode and listening to this apology, thank you for coming back to this week's episode. So we're back to our bread and butter. But again, I just want to apologize for last week's episode. I promise we're going to keep trying to give you guys the highest standard episodes, bringing you good takes and Detroit sports stuff.
Hey, y'all, we really appreciate y'all. If you made it through the entire episode, Tyler and I had a ton of fun recording that in person. Got to really live out our dreams as, in-person podcasters. And then, of course, when we listened to the audio back, we're like, oh, shit, this definitely is not up to par, as Tyler said. So huge shout out to anyone who made it through the entire podcast. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for y'all. And Ty, I just want to give a big shout out to you. Just working behind the scenes in last week's episode. I mean, you spent 3-4 hours minimum getting to that podcast to a point where you could hear and listen, and there was a lot of muting and a ton that went behind the scenes, man. So just want to thank you for that. And yeah, like you said, we are back to our regularly scheduled program. And with that, I think we should talk about one of the hottest teams in baseball. I would love to talk about the Detroit Tigers right now, Ty, if that's cool with you, and specifically the best pitcher in baseball, Tarik Skubal, in his last 6 outings, just a historic run. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we talked about for weeks, and honestly this entire season, outside of that first series against the Dodgers, we were picking great things to come from that series. So like the entire season, we've been talking about how good and how hot the Detroit Tigers were. Tarik Skubal in his last outings, as you just said, 6 outings, has taken his play and like the play of anyone to a whole nother level. So I just have some numbers that like truly amplify how great he's been. His last 6 outings, he has a record of 5-1, which sometimes can tie overall records to pitchers, and sometimes depending on your offense, that's not necessarily their fault. But still, 5-1. He has an ERA of 0.97, an opponent OPS of 4.24. He's given up 1 home run, 50 strikeouts, and 1 walk. And I just want to repeat that: 50 strikeouts and 1 walk over the last 37 innings, 133 at bats. So in 133 at bats, 37 innings, he's given up 4 total runs and just 25 hits. He is on a heater of all heaters, and it's a little bit poetic because he did start the season, admittedly, again, against the Dodgers, one of the best teams in all of baseball history. Now, the Detroit Tigers, I think they might actually have a better record than the Dodgers right now. I can't confirm that.
Same exact record.
Same exact. So, like, are they really even that good? But anyways, after that series, like, there were people online, actually the first 2 series, that were saying, like, Scooby's not actually looking that good. His first 2 starts were kind of slow, a little bit sluggish. Like, maybe we caught lightning in a bottle last year when he won the Cy Young, and he has literally shoved that back into everyone's face that had any doubt. He is operating at a level that is so beyond what we've seen in Detroit in so long.
Yeah, it's insane, and we know that Tarik Skubal, this is the pitcher that he is. We've seen it for the better part of two plus years, 3 years now, and especially last year his Triple Crown performance. But just what he's been doing this last 6 outings, I mean, he has somehow stepped it up even more than we thought he could. And I mean, which is insane to say. He's better than he was last year when he was, a Triple Crown pitcher. I was actually at the game last Friday. I was lucky enough to see him in person at Comerica Park. I took my dad to the game. Shout out Pete there. We had an amazing time. But he was just every bit as impressive in person as he is when I'm, watching him on TV. With 7 innings, gave up, I think, 2 hits, one run, 1 earned run, 12 strikeouts, 0 walks in 7 innings. He was so dominant. The game was a pretty gritty game. I think there was 6 total hits. It was a 2-1 game. I think I was home by 10 p.m. for a 6:40 first pitch. So yeah, it was super efficient. I think I probably only had time for 2 beers, but I mean, Tarik Skubal, it was just outstanding to watch that guy just shove, and it's great to see him shove time and time again. He's so electric.
It's funny you say how quick that game was. I think I heard on the radio or on the broadcast yesterday that the overall time of that game, because he was shoving it, and honestly, like you said, it was just an absolute gut match. I'm pretty sure I heard the game was only 2 hours and 1 minute. And I'm on record saying, like, the pitch clock is great in baseball nowadays. People were saying it was taking too long. I love the long games. Like, I love nothing more than going downtown. Like, maybe you get to the game a little bit late because you're having some beers downtown. You get into the game. You're enjoying the weather. You don't have to worry about time. And I was happy. I liked the 4-hour games. Now, I agree with exactly what you said, that you have 2-hour games, you're only getting a beer and a half in there, and then before you know it, it's the 8th inning, and they're making last calls. So it's funny you mentioned that. But you were at the perfect game, because that Texas Rangers series was super frustrating. We had gone from murdering the Angels and then destroying the Rockies to then mustering up like no runs at all against the Rangers.
Poor Rockies, by the way.
Yeah, I know. They're well, not that poor, because we've been there. And we'll get to the Pistons in the draft lottery in a minute, but like people are saying like, oh, poor Jazz, poor the Rockies. We've been there. We've been the Jazz. We've been the Rockies. So I don't feel that bad for them. Like, we've been there. But I digress. So I'm glad you actually got to see the one game that Tarik started and he shoved, and they were able to muster up just 2 measly runs, because that Rangers series was pretty brutal. But outside of that one, I mean, they've been just on an absolute tear. Like I said, killing the Angels. What they lost, they ended up losing 2 of 3 to the Astros, but killing the Angels, going to the Rockies, and they had a 3-game sweep in, like, I think it was like 24 hours or something. I don't know if they've ever had a 3-game sweep in just 24 hours. And then they played the Red Sox, and Alex Bregman, who obviously we talked a lot about during the offseason about, whether he's going to come here. He ended up snubbing us at the end of the day. Just an absolute dismantling of the Red Sox yesterday, 14-2. So I'm glad you got that Rangers game in there, kind of in between the few stinkers we had.
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually on a plane yesterday, so I didn't get to watch the majority of that Red Sox game. But yeah, I mean, we have to talk about the single turned into inside the park home run for Riley Green. I mean, I don't know if the Red Sox just like didn't want to be there. You probably watched more of the game than I did, but I certainly saw that play. And yeah, I don't even know how it seemed like the ball wasn't bouncing at all. It just somehow got under that right fielder's glove. And then next thing I know, Riley Green, and shout out to Riley Green, by the way, for just hustling. Like, I mean, he was cruising around third base there and scored, pretty easily on a single turn home run. But yeah, I mean, let's keep that going.
It was fun. It was just fun. That play itself was fun. The entire inning was fun. And you feel a little bit for Tanner Houck, the pitcher for the Red Sox, because it just, when it rains, it pours sometimes in baseball. And like, I haven't seen an inning like that from any team. And I know the Rockies just lost like 21-0 the other day. So they obviously felt it too. But
they're a minor league team, so that doesn't really count.
Exactly. Yeah. The Red Sox are great, and to have it in front of Bregman, who, like I just said, like kind of snubbed us at the last minute, like it was so great. So it was a fun series, or a fun game, I should say. Fun last few series outside of those few Rangers games in which maybe the pitching was just a little bit off, a little bit of concern for Jack Flaherty. He's starting to, his first few outings were great, and everyone was saying like, man, what a trade, a signing, then trade, then re-signing him back. A little bit of concern there now, but it's just something to watch. Yeah,
seems like every game he's just like, a few pitches that are just, hanging sliders, and he just gives up just a colossal home run. So yeah, I don't know, big concern there for sure.
So we'll watch that. I think Job looked really good against the Red Sox the other day. He got outshelled obviously in Colorado as well, which was strange, but he looked good yesterday. I mean, obviously he had like an 11-run cushion that the offense gave him. Although even before that, the bases were loaded within like a 1-2 run game in the third inning, and he was able to pitch out of that before we busted it open. So Job looked good. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch Flaherty to see if he's able to, kind of reel it back in, see if Chris Fetter can figure out why he's getting shelled. But I want to go back to Scooby here because we just mentioned the insane numbers that he's having, and I want to embrace the debate because I don't think we've seen a run like this out of any like Detroit sports athlete in at least a long time. So I went back and went through a bunch of numbers, spent way too much time kind of like digging through the archives of some Detroit sports athletes and the runs that they've been on to see where this kind of lines up. And I have a list of 4 different guys from different sports and the dominant runs that they went on to kind of compare to all across different sports. So number 4, we have
before
Sergei
you get
Fedorov.
into them, can I just say like just off the top of my head what kind of comes to mind for me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Who do you think?
I feel like Calvin Johnson has to be on this list. I don't know how far back you went. I mean, Calvin, I think his last season in the NFL was 2015, so I'm not sure if you went that far back, but I'm just thinking about his I think it was 2012 season where he set the NFL record, almost had 2,000 yards through the air. Yeah, I feel like you talk about dominant runs by a Detroit athlete. He's got to be on there. And then my mind goes to Barry Sanders too. Funny that I go to 2 Lions where, we haven't really won anything with that franchise. But yeah, I mean, those guys are still 2 of the most dominant players in their position of all time. So that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And before I do go in this, I had to complain. I personally didn't necessarily dive through the archives of Detroit sports history as ChatGPT did. I just instructed it where to look and what to look for, and these are the numbers that they came up. So, all right, so you got Calvin Johnson and Barry on your list. Mm-hmm. So number 4, it picked 4 guys, 4 dominant stretches, and I tried to keep it around the same. Tarik's run over 6 starts, so I tried to keep it around that same sort of time frame. So number 4 was Sergei Fedorov, December of 1993 to January 1994, so a little over a month. It was a 20-game stretch. He had 16 goals and 21 assists in just 20 games, good for 37 points. A combination of he had some game winners, power play, dominance, elite defense, outscoring entire rosters at certain times during that stretch. So just two-way dominance from Sergei Fedorov. This one, again, this is number 4 of the list. I felt it was okay. It definitely doesn't compare to Tarik Skubal's run that he's currently on.
Yep, agreed.
Number 3, and this one is actually probably, again, it's only number 3 out of 4, working our way up to number 1, but it's really apples to apples, in my opinion. So number 3 is Justin Verlander from August of 2011 to September 2011. He had an 8-start stretch, so a little bit longer than when Tarik's on right now. He went 7-0, had an ERA of 1.27. So, a really good ERA, but not as good as Tarik's. 65 strikeouts in 56 innings. So, okay. 65 and 56. Tarik Skubal has what we said 50 in about 50 innings or 30 innings.
37.
So again, really dominant by Justin Verlander, but not quite to Tarik Skubal. JV had a whip of .85. Opponents were hitting about 180 against him. The Tigers went on a 12-game winning streak during that span. Is really when, August and September is when JV locked up his Cy Young and his MVP during that stretch. So that one really is apples to oranges, in which like one of the most dominant pitching performances we've seen in Tigers history, and Tarik is easily beating that out right now.
Yeah, and I think if you ask ChatGPT, it could probably find about 5 other runs that JV has had in a Tigers uniform where he's been almost that dominant. He had such a good career with the Tigers.
Yeah. All right, number 2, sticking in baseball, you have Miguel Cabrera from August of 2012 to September of 2012. In these games, I think it was a total, so a little bit longer there's 2 months of a stretch here. Miguel Cabrera he hit 357, 16 home runs, 44 RBIs, had a 1.108 OPS over his final 2 months. It's when he really solidified the Triple Crown race. I think he was beating out Chris Davis for the home runs there, kind of putting that conversation to rest. So 357 with 16 home runs and 44 RBIs, that's insane. But again, we've seen hitters get hot. We've seen, Aaron Judge is one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now. I think it's almost easier for a hitter to just go up there and it looks like a beach ball coming down the pike. And so I think it's great, but it's not Tarik Skubal.
Yeah, and really let's give Miggy his flowers for a second.
Yeah, he's the greatest hitter ever.
How unbelievable. I mean, one of the greatest right-handed hitters of all time, certainly in our generation. And yeah, that season where he won the Triple Crown, I mean, he is still the last hitter to win the Triple Crown. That was in, what, 2012, you said? It's so rare for a guy to be able to hit for average and hit for power, and to lead the league in all of those categories is, it's something that doesn't happen often. Hasn't happened in over a decade. So yeah, that was just dominance upon dominance right there.
And like we said, he's literally one of the best hitters ever. So like, if we're saying Tarik, apples to oranges, but is Tarik one of the best pitchers to ever? Is he going to end up being that? Whatever. The number one best stretch outside, and Tarik was not on this list obviously because I compared it to Tarik. Number one was your boy Barry Sanders that you mentioned from October of 1997 to November of 1997. He had an 8-game stretch where he averaged 171 rushing yards per game over those 8 games, and 368 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 7 straight 100-yard games with an absurd 6.5 yards per carry during that span. So it's arguably one of the most productive 2-month stretches by a running back ever, and basically carried the Lions to the playoffs single-handedly. Or playoff contention, I should say, single-handedly. So that is ChatGPT's number one most dominant stretch by a Detroit athlete. And still, I put Tarik Skubal over that.
Yeah, that was Barry's MVP season too. One of his last with the line. Well, one of his last in his career, right? And he had over 2,000 yards on the ground. I think you said he averaged 6.5 yards
per carry
in that stretch on the season. I think he averaged over 6. So yeah, that was just an insanely dominant run. And it's a shame that he retired when he did, because I think he had a lot left in the tank.
So I don't know about you. Do you put Tarik's run, his 6-game stretch right now, above all those? Do you put him in between there somewhere? What do you think?
I think I'm having him tied with JV right now. Maybe a cop-out
put
answer.
JV atop. Wow.
Yeah, no, as like third on that list.
Gotcha,
I
okay.
still think Miggy's and Barry's run are just more dominant there. But I do think that Tarik is doing every bit as well as JV did in that MVP season. And of course we know Tarik, he Triple Crown last year. He's I think on pace for it again. I don't know who, at least in the American League, who can top him. I know Paul Skeens is doing great things in the National League there too, but this is an absolutely dominant run, and it's one of the best in Detroit sports.
Say he puts up 2 more starts carrying this trend. Is he passing Miguel at 2? How many more starts does he need performing like this to make his way up this list, past Miggy, past Barry there at number 1?
Yeah, if he puts up, because I think JV's stretch was 8 starts. I think if Scoops puts up 8 straight, and he has 10 strikeouts in each start there, and 7 or 8 innings, couple runs, I think he's definitely up there for me. But regardless, it's baseball. There's a lot of variance in baseball. I mean, he's probably due to get shelled for an outing.
A little bit.
It's going to happen. You're not just going to have your best stuff every single day, but I think more often than not, Skubal is going to have his best stuff. That's why he's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, so just looking, I mean, like you said, it is very much a season, a whole long season, so you can't take one. Just looking at real quick the schedule, it looks like he is slated to pitch against Boston on Wednesday, tomorrow. So if you're listening to this, it'd be today. And then his next start is slated to be against St. Louis, 20th. So, and that obviously could change with injuries and stuff like that. So you're looking at, if he can continue this trend 2 more times against Boston and St. Louis, I agree. He definitely is moving up, surely. So I thought that was super interesting. The run that he was on, I just made me start thinking, like, what other run have we seen? Have we seen anything like this before? Either way, like, Detroit fans, grab onto this. If you didn't know before, he's must see TV. Like, you have to tune in. If you're coming to a game, do whatever you can to get to a game that he's pitching, because it's going to be electric. It's going to be grindy. And so I thought that was great. Now, the other part about the Tigers that I wanted to kind of discuss here was that right now the Detroit Tigers have 3 players in the top 5 odds on DraftKings for comeback player of the year. So you have Spencer Torkelson, Javi Baez, and Casey Mize as the 2nd best, 3rd best, and 4th best odds to win comeback player of the year. You have Torque at plus 250, Javi at plus 420, and then Casey Mize at plus 600. And I think someone else, I don't recall who is number 1. Someone's tied with Torque for 1. So that's the only person that's beating them out there. So Kyle, if you had to, and I saw this on Twitter, so I can't take credit for it. If you had to buy, sell, and hold on those 3 guys, who are you buying, who are you selling, who are you holding to finish the season out as strong as they are and win that comeback player of the year?
Yeah, I'm buying on Javi plus 420. And people might forget. I'm not going to forget that a certain co-host of the Gridiron Report, named Tyler Dutton, had said that Javi Baez is going to have a bounce back season. He's going to be incredible. Now, I mean, did you say he was going to bat 300? No, because you're a realistic person who has a brain, and no one really could have seen this coming. But I think at those odds, I mean, he has proven through pretty much a quarter of the season that he's back. He's not swinging at garbage pitches, that sweeper slider. He's taking it. He's taking some walks. He's not necessarily hitting for power, but hey, look, the past 2 weeks, he's cranking the ball. So yeah, so he still definitely has some pop in his bat. I'm definitely buying him at plus 420 for comeback player of the year. I think I'm probably going to hold on Torque. His power numbers are incredible. I think that his average has definitely dipped in recent weeks. So I would love to see that, get up a little bit more, maybe hammer out a few more singles there, get on base a little more. And then as much as I love Casey Mize, I probably, if I did have to sell one of those guys, it'd probably be Mize.
So I did the same exercise, obviously. I said the same, you're buying Javi. He's looked more comfortable. We talked at nauseum about how he looks light out there. He's having fun again. And baseball is one of the most mental sports in that, like when you're slumping, you're slumping and it's not fun, and that makes you slump even more. But as soon as you can switch your mind and your mentality around it, you really can see your numbers start to pick up. And we've seen that with Javi. So I'm absolutely buying him. Again, like you said, I did already say he was going to win comeback player of the year for be most improved. So just backing myself here. So I agree. I'm buying on Javi. Now, when I wrote this in our show notes, I was thinking one way, and some news has come out that is making me think the other way. So originally I was buying Javi. I was holding Casey Mize. I loved what I was seeing out of Casey Mize. I thought he has battled injuries his entire career. He was really caught up in the COVID beginning of his career, and that definitely threw off some of the training and some of the progression in his career. And he was looking great this season. He was looking healthy. He was looking like he had a full healthy offseason with Chris Fetter. He looks great. I was all in on Casey Mize. I was holding Casey Mize, and I was unfortunately selling on Torque for the exact same reason that you were saying, and that his power looks great. And he started the season with really good contact and really good average. But we started to see that sort of dip down a little bit, as you just mentioned. Started going down, and that's normal, right? You have a guy who is hitting, is on track to hit 30, 40 home runs. You're going to expect his average to be in the 230s, something like that. You don't get Miguel Cabrera's every day who's hitting 50 home runs, 40 home runs, and hitting 300. Like, that just doesn't come around. So it was normal, but I was just selling on Torque because we were seeing his batting average start to go down a little bit. Now, like I said, that was when I wrote this. That was my thought process. It has now switched because Spencer Torkelson has gotten his batting average back up a little bit. It would drop down to like 231 or something. He's back up to 238. So he is starting to get that back up. If he can hover right around 240, 245, I think that's great. Yeah, and beauty. Casey Mize went onto the IL, 15-day IL retroactively for a hamstring injury. He sat out a lot of last year with a hamstring injury. So that is why now suddenly I'm having to kind of scramble and sell on Casey, unfortunately, because that is a little bit concerning based on it's a re-aggravated injury that he sat out a lot of last year for. So it's definitely going to be something to watch.
Yeah, certainly concerning. And I think that's why tonight I see Tyler Holton is slated as the starter for the Tigers. Yeah, it looks like they're doing a bullpen, a chaos game. So I can only assume this would have been Mize's start, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, wishing the kid the best of luck. Yeah, you never like a re-aggravated injury from the previous season. So yeah, I mean, Mize, he's off to a great start. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so at least we're both on the same page as we're buying Javi Baez and holding on to be the comeback player of the year. So, okay. That was great Tigers talk. I think the boys are red hot. They're playing, like Kyle just said, right now as we speak. They just started against the Red Sox, so hopefully they can continue what they were doing the other day with that onslaught. But let's pivot a little bit to let's tease a little bit for the Lions. So we had a decent amount that we were going to talk about the Lions. Today is the start of the NFL draft, or excuse me, the NFL schedule release. During the draft, they announced the date in which they were going to announce the schedule, which is classic NFL trying to stay relevant.
Yep.
But unfortunately, they're doing it in a super weird way, and that they're piecemealing it, and they're giving out international games, and not every team, they're doing random games here and there. So at this time of recording, we don't have the full Lions schedule. We do know there will be no international games. We know who they will be playing home and away. We just don't know the actual schedule. So we're going to hold off on that hopefully by tomorrow. By the time you guys are listening to this, it will be released. So Kyle and I will go in next week. We'll do a full breakdown of all their games, stretches that we're concerned about, stretches in which hopefully, we can have some get right games, try and figure out where that bye is, see if it's going to help us out, if we're going to need it for our, the injury issues we've had in the past. We'll do a full breakdown on that coming next week.
Couple things on that too. First of all, NFL, just give us the damn schedules. Like, are you kidding me?
Weird.
Like, it's so annoying. Like, you're trying to stay relevant in a period of sports time where you have really good NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs. Just tell me who my teams are playing and when they're playing. I would seriously love to know. I guess just one more thing on the schedule before it's released. Tyler, what do you think about a potential Lions-Eagles first game of the season? I feel like the NFL got such great ratings the last time that the Lions were on that first game of the season. We were on your bachelor party, of course, but Lions Chiefs. I feel like they, and I can't take credit for this. I heard it on PMT, but I feel like the league loves to have the defending champ in there. So I don't know, man. Lions Eagles. It was the matchup that everyone wanted in the playoffs last year. Lions obviously shit the bed. We didn't get it, but thoughts on that?
It would be so smart for the NFL. Like you said, last season was fantastic. They did a great job. It would feed families, but I will say, and I don't know the truth of this, I have seen that is confirmed not going to be the case, that the Lions will not start the season with the Eagles. I want to say the Eagles confirmed are starting against some. I don't know the other team off the top of my head. The Eagles, for some reason, like I said, the NFL is doing this in a really weird way. The Eagles had some of their games released in which they're starting against some other teams. So the only thing we know about the Lions is that Week 1 won't be the Eagles, and that Thanksgiving won't be the Cowboys or the Bears. Those are and also we know that there won't be any international games.
Oh, it's I see it. Sorry, it's hard. Yeah, you're right. It's already released. It's Eagles Cowboys.
Oh my God, the Eagles Lions would feed families.
Nope. Now I'm not so sure. I don't know. That was Google AI. I see a couple different. And let me read into this a little more. I'll get back to you.
Okay, so like we said, we do know at home the Lions are going to be playing the Bears, Packers, Vikings, Cowboys, Giants, Browns, Steelers, Buccaneers. Away, the Lions are going to be playing the Bears, Packers, Vikings, Eagles, Commanders, Ravens, Bengals, Rams, Chiefs. So a difficult schedule. We just don't know the order of them. Hopefully some of those gauntlet playoff teams are spread out, but we'll have to wait and see next week.
Okay. And also confirmed. Yeah, it is Eagles Cowboys. So sorry for doubting myself there.
Oh, stinky. The Lions Eagles would feed families. Cowboys, we got to watch Dak opening night. Nah.
Tough scene.
So that'll be next week. A little teaser for the people. We'll be reviewing that next week with the actual full thing. So let's jump to something we do have, and that is the NBA. We don't have any Pistons talk per se, as the Pistons already were eliminated. Actually looks like we did the Knicks a huge favor because we toughened them up, and they're absolutely taking it to Boston right now. So you're welcome, New York. Any of our New York listeners, you're welcome for what we were able to do for your team. But what we do have is the NBA draft lottery that Pistons fans are all too familiar with, something that we've been victimized by for years and years and years. And honestly, the same sort of trend happened again during this draft lottery. So something has to change with this. So let's just get into it. The draft lottery was earlier this week. If you followed Detroit Pistons for a few years, we've been god awful. We've been the worst team in the league many years, if not the worst three. And yet every single year we seem to fall in the draft lottery. We talked about it with the Red Wings, and that we always only end up getting screwed from the lottery. Similar to the Pistons, we are always the number one worst team, but we always end up with the 5th overall pick. Now, it is a little bit lopsided because while we do have the best odds to land number one overall as the worst team in the league, there's also an even higher chance that we end up at 5th. And that's just the way the NBA has changed it. Back in 2019, they re-weighted the odds in order to try and make sure that teams aren't tanking. So they resituated the odds and essentially make sure that you can't just lose and try and get the first overall pick. And so since they did that in 2019, the worst team in the NBA has never won the number one overall draft pick because it's so kind of ass backwards in a sense.
Dude,
for the third straight
6 years of that, 6 years of that, and the worst team has never got the number one pick. Like, Get the fuck out of here, NBA.
Third straight year, the worst team in the NBA has fallen from number 1 overall to 5 overall. So not even falling like a 1 to 2, and you're still getting the top 2. They have fallen from first overall to 5th overall. Obviously, the Pistons being part of that. So in 2019, this is just since they changed it in 2019. In 2019, the Knicks, who interesting to think that they were back there, they were in this position back in 2019. They went from number 1, the best odds on that number 1. They ended up picking at number 3. In 2020, the Warriors went from 1 to 2. 2021, the Rockets went from 1 to 2, and then 2022, the Rockets went from 1 to 3. And then 2023, 2024, and 2025, the Pistons again, and then the Utah Jazz this year went from number 1 to number 5. So I get the sentiment of like trying to not let teams tank, then trying to weigh the odds. But it clearly isn't working. Like the Pistons weren't trying to lose 28 games in a row last season. They were just bad. Like maybe towards the end, there was a few games in which we probably could have played some guys. And, Isaiah Stewart, I know, went up going out in the final few games of the season. Same with Cade. So like maybe there's a few games we threw in there, maybe. But like we weren't trying to be that bad. We wanted to win games. And we got rewarded with the 5th overall pick. Like you said earlier when we were talking about the Rockies, like I do feel a little bit bad for the Utah Jazz for being the worst team in the league and falling to 5, but we've been there. We've been victimized like that.
Yeah, no, we certainly have. Pistons 3 years in a row drafted 5. It's tough. But I mean, I literally this was the take the second that I saw the Mavs had the number 1 pick, but I've never been more sure in my life that the NBA is rigged and the NBA lottery is rigged. Like, yeah, I mean, there's only so much that we could say. I mean, the data is literally right in front of us. Like, I mean, a team like the Mavs who, just fork over a generational player for literal carrots and peas and then get rewarded with the number 1 pick in return when they have a 1.8% chance of getting that number 1 pick. And then, meanwhile, you got a team like the Jazz who gets absolutely boned going from 1 to 5. Not that I care about the Jazz at all, but like, it's more of a principle of like, these teams that, they're decent teams. Dallas, you basically hand over one of the best players in the league and you get rewarded with this. It's insane. And then you have a team like the Spurs who are like, the 8th or 9th worst team in the league and they move all the way up to 2. Like, I mean, the league is just so setting up, a team with a superstar like Wembanyama. The Spurs were already rewarded with the number 1 pick and now they get the number 2 pick on top to just parlay more talent or potentially trade those picks, get Giannis down to San Antonio. I mean, it's such bullshit, man. And then you got these small market teams that have absolutely no chance. I mean, they're not what's good for the league. Having the Utah Jazz, even like, I mean, Washington's a pretty big market, DC, but I'm looking at a team like the Jazz, small market. I mean, the league cannot market them. They don't make any money on them. Of course, the league isn't going to reward them with the number 1 pick. Like, it's such bullshit.
I'm not much of a conspiracy guy. I think we talked about something a few weeks ago, but it's kind of around the same thing. And I mentioned I'm not a conspiracy guy. But like you said, Dallas ended up winning the first overall draft pick. They had a 1.8% chance to get number 1. And obviously Cooper Flagg, we'll do a draft breakdown probably in the future because the Pistons don't have a first round draft pick. We only have a second round. But Cooper Flagg's going to go number 1 overall. They actually even came out today and said they're not trading the pick. They're taking him. So like it's over and done with. They got number 1. The Jazz, Washington, and the Hornets, who were the 1, 2, and 3, should have been the 1, 2, and 3. They ended up going 5, 6, and 4 respectively. So Jazz at 5, Washington Wizards at 6, Charlotte Hornets, the Hornets at 4. And it's again, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but it really is pushing the thought process of like I'm not a guy, but it seems like you put your tinfoil hat on for a second. And you say, okay, the Mavericks were clear to every other team. They did not make Luka Doncic available to any other team. They were not willing to talk about it, and out of nowhere, they trade him to LA, the largest market for LeBron to play alongside LeBron James. And then in return, they get the number 1 draft pick with a 4 or 1.8 overall chance to get it. So I'm not saying anything like this happened, but like it really makes you think like, okay, did the NBA say like, hey, we need Luka. The Lakers have been kind of in this rut a little bit. LeBron's getting older. We need more talent in LA and more playoff basketball in LA. Luka, you're going to LA. Dallas, we'll give you the number 1 overall pick, for your troubles and stuff. And you look back at it, I think there's been 5 times in the last like 10, 15 years in which a star player, actually surprisingly or not, Anthony Davis has been involved in like 3 of them, has been traded And then suddenly that team who did the blockbuster trade midseason then got rewarded with the number one overall pick. It was Chris Paul when he got traded to the Clippers. They got rewarded. And I think back then it was the Charlotte Hornets ended up taking Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis was traded from the Pelicans, and so it was a whole thing. It really just makes you think. Like I don't, again, I'm not that kind of guy to think like that, but it's really, really sketchy.
Yeah, dude, it's frustrating. I mean, we could probably spend a whole podcast on how bullshit the NBA is, but
yeah. Let's because yeah, I agree that we could definitely spiral onto this. Let's kind of focus this in on the Pistons and wrap it into how the Pistons go from here. So, like I mentioned, the Detroit Pistons don't have a first overall or first round draft pick because of the trade that actually netted us Isaiah Stewart back in the day. It finally conveyed because we made the playoffs. So that pick is going to be going actually to the Knicks, but then they moved it to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So the Timberwolves will be selecting for the Pistons in the first round. So we do have a second round pick. I think that's like 30th overall. But outside of the draft, what do you want to see the Pistons do? There's a lot of talk online. Trajan came out last week and kind of went through his plan and his ideas, at least, and high view of his ideas of what he wants to do. What's the Kyle plan for the Detroit Pistons this offseason?
Yeah, my take, 3 words. Run it back. And I'll tell you why. The Pistons have early bird signing rights to Dennis Schroeder and Tim Hardaway Jr. And just for any of our listeners, just the early bird is just a salary cap exemption where a team can re-sign a player who was previously on the team. And there's a couple things that come into it, but you can basically give them the greater of 105% of the average player's salary for the prior season, or 175% raise on that player's previous salary. So I do think that they can sign both of those guys, and it's going to be worth it because both of them are veteran players, can hit threes, can take care of the ball, and they're just great veteran role players to pair alongside guys like Cade and Ivy. I will say the Pistons are in a bit of a tough spot, and this is not a bad thing. This is a very good thing, but their cap space is likely to shrink with Cade Cunningham getting all NBA. And so he's due for more money because of that. The Pistons, I think they have about $28 million in cap. That's going to go down to $19 million. And so they can do a couple things, but yeah, Cade's contract essentially is going to go to up to $269 million from $224 if he wins All NBA, or if he's awarded All NBA. So they can do a couple things. They can act as a team, over the cap, under the cap. If they act over the cap, they can bring back Tim Hardaway Jr. They can bring back Dennis Schroeder. I believe they can also bring back Malik Beasley as long as his salary doesn't get too high. I think somewhere in like that $12 to $14 million threshold, which of course he's getting $6 million now for a 1 year. So he's obviously going to be due more money. He nearly led the NBA in threes last season. And then I do think that they're probably still in a position where they can extend Jaden Ivey, and they might get him for a bit of a bargain just because he is coming off that, kind of gruesome injury. And, he was proving himself, of course, before that. But then he goes down with an injury. He's been, kind of, a bit up and down in his career to date. I do think that the best is yet to come with Jaden Ivey, but I do think if they do go to extend him, they don't have to, by the way. He is still under contract for next year. But if they go to extend him, they might be able to get him for a bit of a bargain there. So yeah, overall though, I think you can run it back. You can manipulate the cap in a way to get all these players back.
My thought process moving forward is very similar because there's kind of 2 different thought processes from the fans. It's either the run it back, like you just mentioned, or they go star hunting. And by star hunting, I'm talking Devin Booker, Lauri Markkanen. I saw an article with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I want to go on the record saying
Zion's been thrown out there.
He's been thrown around for a while. I want to go on the record saying and I'm not going to give if that's what you want, if that's what you think we should do, that's awesome. I'm not going to call you stupid. I'm just going to tell you there is a slim to absolute 0 chance the Detroit Pistons come away this offseason with Devin Booker, Lauri Markkanen, Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're not going star hunting. That's just not what Trajan does. It's not when he came here. He said he was not going to do that. I don't think they had the money or the assets to do that, and so I don't think that's going to be happening. What I want us to do is kind of a mixture of what you said. I want to run it back. We didn't see a single game in which our number 1 starting lineup got to play together, and that would be Cade, Jaden, Asar, Tobias, and Jalen Duren. Like that starting 5 never played once together last season because of injuries and stuff of that nature. So I'm bringing them back. I'm extending and Trajan is fantastic at working around the cap. Michael Blackstone, who is in the front office with Trajan, brought him over last year with him. He's fantastic with making deals and stuff. So figure out the money. I want to extend Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. I think Jalen Duren showed it enough this in the postseason run, the second half of the season, that he can be that guy. Jaden Ivey, we saw the kind of one thing for him, for me, was that he needed to hit threes a little bit at a higher rate. He was hitting at a career high 40%, something like that. So he showed he can do it. That's my starting five. Now for our second, our second unit, I agree. I'm bringing back Dennis Schroeder. You can maybe get him on an MLE, the middle exception level, to try and save some cap space. I'm bringing back Malik Beasley. Got the Malik Beasley jersey or shirt on right here, even though I bought this before the playoffs when he kind of laid an egg, and I kind of had to wear it now. I know he'll be back and better than ever next season. So I'm bringing back Malik Beasley. I think the issue with the moving here then now, though, is that like I'm letting Tim Hardaway walk in order to get younger, and I'm also I'm letting Tim Hardaway walk to get younger. I'm looking for maybe a replacement next year for Tobias Harris. Tobias is getting a little bit older. I'm maybe looking for a replacement there. And I'm looking for those two guys. So in the free agency, I'm looking at maybe like a Bobby Portis to bring in, sign as a free agent to be a backup to Tobias Harris. Bobby Portis, obviously 6'10", can shoot the three ball pretty well. Shot 36% last year, which is a little bit down. Shot 40% from the year before. Maybe a Bobby Portis. Maybe in a perfect world, you're looking at like a Naz Reid, but with the Timberwolves. But I don't think they're going to let him leave Minnesota. And plus, we just got into a big brawl with him and the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm not sure if he'd want to come back here. Maybe like Jake LaRavia, some guys you guys can look into, in your free time. Jake LaRavia, John Collins, maybe. So looking for some of that contingency plan for the four for Tobias Harris as he's getting older. And then if you're going to replace Tim Hardaway Jr., I'm looking at like guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, again with the Timberwolves. They probably aren't going to be able to keep both of them, so maybe you bring in him on a good deal. Ochai Agbaji from, I think he's on Toronto now. I think he can maybe be a good, like 6'5" guard that can shoot the three. Keon Ellis, if they're going to let him walk. Gary Trent Jr., like that kind of like 6'5", two-way wing that can kind of come in. And Tim Hardaway Jr. was starting for most of the season, but I don't think he would be starting next year. So you don't need this guy to come in and be a starter. So I'm looking for sort of a backup there. So a lot of running it back, seeing that starting five that we never got to see, but then also bringing in a replacement for THJ, re-signing Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley, and then getting some sort of a plan for down the road for as Tobias gets older.
You mentioned, the plan for replacing Tobias, potentially letting Tobias walk this year, next year, whatever that might be. What do you think about Jonathan Kuminga for the Warriors? He's a polarizing player, and I think if I would have asked myself this a couple of months ago or a year ago, I would have said this guy's kind of buns. I'm kind of coming around to him. I want to know your thoughts on Kuminga.
It's so hard to evaluate him because he's been on this loaded team for so long, and they've just prolonged their window in which like never really giving him his chance to really shine. So Kuminga, 6'8", 210-pound power forward, small forward, from Golden State. Obviously, I've seen him be tossed around in a lot of trades with the Pistons over the last few weeks because he is a name that like they kind of need to make their decision. Like he can't carry a franchise by himself. So as your stars start getting older, do you start to focus towards him and rebuild around him, or do you use him and as trade bait and let him walk, or trade it for try and extend your window around Steph Curry and stuff like that? Kuminga, he would fit the 6'8", 6'9" power forward mold that Detroit needs. I don't know if his 3-point shooting is where we need it to be. But if you're bringing in, you bring him back Dennis, you bring him back Malik Beasley, Stu maybe can get his three ball going again. Ivy's back as a 3-point flamethrower. You don't need him to be, but I mean he is a bucket. 15 points per game this season on limited minutes, only 24, but only shot 30% from three. So that's the only thing. But I'll say this, and I want to know your thoughts. If there's a guy in the NBA who can get that 30%. Up to 35, 36%. It's Fred Vinson, the best 3-point shooting assistant coach in the NBA, and Detroit has him. So maybe pairing him with Fred Vinson can unlock something.
My thoughts exactly on Fred Vincent there, yeah, because I'm looking, in a bit of an expanded role for Kuminga, and of course the Warriors have had some injuries. He does look like even though his shooting is down a little bit, his 3-point shooting, his minutes are up. and he's taking more shots. And so I just feel like, yeah, there's something there for a player. He's 22, 23 years old. He seems like he's older because he's been in the league for so long, but I guess that's the NBA, right? These guys, they come out when they're 18 or 19. And so, yeah, it seems like they're older than they actually are. So, yeah, I feel like there is still, room to, develop this guy. And I don't know, he could fit. I don't know what kind of, contract you're going to have to give that guy. He's coming off his rookie deal, or he will be coming off his rookie deal. So just a thought there. But yeah, I think there's quite a bit that Trajan Langdon could do, and I'm pretty pumped to see what they're going to do. But yeah, I do think that the Pistons, they're in a really good spot right now. They have a great core. Guys are continuing to develop. They're young. They're buying into this program. They're buying into this coach, JB Bickerstaff. So yeah, they're in a great spot.
And I will say the contingency plan for Tobias Harris getting older might already be on the roster in Bobby Klintman. We saw him in very limited minutes at the major, the NBA level, but in the G League, he was really great. 6'9", flamethrower shooter as a wing. Really Tobias Harris just a little bit skinnier than Tobias, so can't really pound inside the paint there. And can put on some weight, but the replacement might already be within the on the roster. So I guess calling my shot, my 10-man rotation: Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, Duran, Dennis, Beasley, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Bobby Portis, Isaiah Stewart. That's my 10. That's what I want to roll into next season with, and we'll see if that happens.
I like it. Yeah, more or less aligned on that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we do have, to wrap up the show, we do have two listener voicemails, one about the Tigers, one about Pistons/Red Wings. So let's give those both a listen to now, and then we'll get into some miscellaneous stuff to wrap up the show.
First-time caller, long-time listener, Troy Humans here. I just finished last week's episode, and I just had a question for Tyler. So I seem to remember 2.5 years ago, Tyler was leading the sell the team, fire Avila chance, and now he's saying it's unfortunate that we let him go. So which one is it, Tyler? Are we selling the team and firing Avila, or is he grid of the week? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Okay, so listener Troy, thank you for the call. Thank you for the voicemail. A few things to address here. So what Troy is alluding to, a few weeks ago, I gave my grid of the week to Al Avila, and I stand by my decision to do so. Even when talking about it, I think I kind of won you over a little bit, Kyle, too, in which if you break down the roster and the guys that are contributing to this team right now, this hot Tigers team that we keep talking about all season, a lot of those guys came from the Al Avila era. They were drafted. Most of them weren't signed internationally. Most of them were drafted. And I don't have the guys in front of me at the moment. It was guys like Colt Keith, Spencer Torkelson, Casey Mize, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green. I mean, that's right there is almost like 5 of our star young players right now. And I believe even Jackson Jobe was an Al Avila pick at the time. At the time, you're thinking like, we need talent at the MLB level. Why are we taking a high schooler? And the long game ended up playing really well. So I will say I never said it's unfortunate that Al Avila was let go. You're right. I was pounding my fist on the table at games, holding up the signs saying, fire Avila, and rightfully so. I stick by that as well. I think he was at the end. The MLB managers across and GMs across the country were calling him to take advantage of him for trades. If you break down the trades that we did at deadlines, they were terrible. I mean, you look at the Justin Verlander trade. Yeah, Jake Rogers kind of played out, and luckily Dylan Dingler is playing really well right now while Jake's on the IL. But you had one of the best pitchers of all time, and you got maybe a half a catcher out of it. Like his trades were terrible, but you had to give credit where credit's due and say like he did draft decently well, and you're not going to give him credit for guys like Spencer Torkelson and Casey Mize. Those were consensus 1-1s. But you look at the other guys, like I said, the Colt Keith, Riley Green, Jackson Jobe, Kerry Carpenter. These guys are contributing, and they weren't 1-1 draft picks. So I stand by my grid of the week to Al Avila, but I also stand by he needed to be fired, and I won't stand for saying that it's unfortunate that he was fired, because I definitely didn't say that.
Yeah, what a spin zone by listener Troy there. Maybe putting words in your mouth saying we shouldn't have let him go. I certainly don't remember you saying that, but we're not ganging up on you, Troy. Thanks so much for the voicemail, man.
All right, so we got one other listener voicemail. Again, this one pertaining to the Pistons and the Red Wings both, so let's give that a listen right now.
Hey guys, this is Greg calling because I just listened to your podcast and have a comment about Yzerman and his tenure. And it leads me back to when Joe Dumars became the general manager for the Pistons. Dumars was a great player, absolutely loved him. He brought us some championships. Was really excited that he came on board. But when he was the general manager, he didn't do squat. And he ended up leaving. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth. And it damaged, in my opinion, damaged his reputation. And I think Yzerman is doing the same thing. You know, he brought us Stanley Cups. He was great. And he became general manager. I had high hopes for him. But he's not doing anything. And I'm afraid that he's going to turn into a Joey D. And that breaks my heart. There's two icons of Detroit that left with less than a bang, and that makes me sad. I was just curious about your thoughts on that.
Hey, Greg. Thanks so much for the voicemail, man. I think you might be one of our most avid listeners. I think you're definitely paving the way for our other voicemails there. Yeah. So I love the comment on Yzerman. I should say I wish Yzerman was doing better and we didn't have to comment on things like this. But yeah, I agree that I definitely see some similarities between the Yzerman tenure and Joe Dumars, of course, two amazing players who brought championships to the city of Detroit. And yeah, as a GM, I certainly don't love what I see out of the Red Wings right now. I will say that, you know, a big difference between Yzerman and Joe Dumars, you know, Yzerman has proven that he can build a great NHL team. You know, he built up the Tampa Bay Lightning, and although he had already left by the time the Lightning started winning championships, I do think that, you know, most of those players were, you know, they came up in the system that, you know, Yzerman had built down there in Tampa Bay. So that makes it all the more frustrating for me. You know, we see what this guy is capable of, and to just have this, you know, decade long plus rebuild for the Red Wings, for a team that this guy did play for, and he, you know, put his, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into this franchise. Obviously, he has stake in it. He loves this franchise. So, you know, to see us, you know, still kind of floundering around after a decade, yeah, it's super frustrating. And Tyler and I have both voiced our frustration. And yeah, I think you need to see some changes. And I'm not saying changes as in we need to go get a different GM, but certainly changes in the way that, you know, the Red Wings approach, you know, an offseason or approach a deadline or, you know, building a team. So yeah, something's got to change there.
This is interesting to me because I never really even put the two together, the Joe Dumars and Stevie Y, like fantastic players, like guys that truly symbolized Detroit for a period of time. And it was exactly true. Like Joe Dumars came, and I think technically he was at the helm for the 2004 championship, but after that, then he kind of got lost his way and really left on bad terms. I think actually he was just hired down for New Orleans, I want to say. I think he was hired in New Orleans, and he brought Troy Weaver with him, if I recall correctly. So strange there, but
yikes.
It would definitely left a sour taste in everyone's mouth, the way that it all kind of fizzled out and kind of dragged us on for so long. I agree with you, Kyle, that like Stevie Y, he's proven he did it in Tampa Bay, but I definitely have a different kind of opinion of him now, and it is unfortunate. You kind of do need to separate the player and the front office from one another, because there's two separate careers. There should be two separate guys. It's something we should do, but it's not so super easy. I definitely have a different opinion of him. And even like what we were talking about a few episodes ago, so you can go back and listen to that, when we were talking about the sort of like bickering back and forth between Larkin and Yzerman, that also like just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like a GM shouldn't act like that. And you look at, you know, the captain, Stevie Y, out on the ice as a player, and then now you look at like the bickering he's doing with Larkin in front of the press. It's not great. Like you said, we voiced our concerns about that, but it is super interesting. I never really put the two and two together. Like Joe Dumars kind of did a similar thing, just without having the actual success as a GM elsewhere before coming here. So we talked about them, you know, a bunch over the last few weeks. So if you want to go back to our other episodes and listen to it, Kyle and I have dove into our thoughts on the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman and stuff like that. So, but thank you for the call. I mean, Kyle's right. Greg, you are leading the way for our other listeners. So everyone else, give that number a call in, leave your voicemail with your thoughts and opinions and a question. We can jump on that. So, all right, let's wrap up with some miscellaneous stuff. You got some golf to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk a little golf. Yeah, I know we're probably at the hour mark or close to it, so we don't have to hit on it too much, but it is a major weekend. PGA Championship is this weekend at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually had the pleasure of going to the Quail last year for the Wells Fargo. Shout out Stags and his bachelor party. Really beautiful course. And I think there is one player who plays exceptionally well at this course. I think, when he plays it, he's something like, 100 under par in, I don't know how many rounds that is, but that is Rory McIlroy, which I think is like 50 strokes better than the next best guy at Quail Hollow over a period of, I don't know, I saw it on Twitter, didn't save the stat, so sue me there. But yeah, I think my pick to win it, I'm going to run it back with Rory. I'm picked him to win the Masters, and I'm picking him here. He's right now playing as, one of, if not the best players in the world. Of course, Scotty's playing awesome as well. But I do think that if there's one guy who just knows this course, it's Rory. So he's going to be my pick. I'm also sprinkling, and this is the same guy that I sprinkled for the Masters. He didn't do so well in the Masters, but he did pick up a win a couple weeks later. That is Justin Thomas, JT. And then it would be remiss to not mention Mr. PGA Championship himself, Brooks Koepka. While I don't think that he quite has it in him to win this week, you can never count Brooks out at a major, and especially in a PGA Championship or a U.S. Open. So I am, I'm sprinkling Brooks to finish in the top 10.
During the Masters, we talked about it. I'm not an avid golf watcher. I play it not very well, but I definitely don't really watch it. So I'm going to say, I just did a quick Google search, looked up the favorites. I'm going to go Scotty Scheffler. He's going to be my pick. I think Scotty gets it done. He's at plus 400. I think Rory's at plus 450, according to this Google search that I just did. So I'm going Scotty.
Scotty, it's a great pick. I can't remember. I think this was the golf tournament in Dallas last weekend before, whenever it was. Scotty went like 31 under par in the 4 rounds, won that tournament by like 8 strokes. It was insane. So he's obviously one of the best players in the world, and so I like that pick a lot.
Okay, the final part of the show. Let's get to our grit of the week. I will start us off with mine. So we just talked about it with the listener voicemail. I've been trying to go outside the box a little bit over these last few weeks to try and spread the love to our grit of the week. But for me, there's no way you can go anywhere else, in my opinion, other than this guy right here for grit of the week. And it should be a prolonged 6-week grit of the week. And that's Tarik Skubal. Like we've mentioned, he's on a historic run, not only for Detroit sports, but just MLB in general. And we don't need to break down the numbers any further, but like you mentioned, it's baseball. Eventually the wheels are going to fall off for like a start or two. But to be honest with you, that might not happen with him. Like he comes out, he has so much energy, so much passion, so much, physical ability. I don't see that happening anytime soon. Of course, now he's going to come out and get shelled in his next outing, but like he's that good, in which I'm that confident every time he takes the mound. As long as we score 2, we're winning. So my grit of the week's got to go to Tarik Skubal.
Love it. I don't know if I put it in the show notes, but I certainly have it in my notes up here right now. He is easily my grit of the week as well. Tarik Skubal, of course, I talked about it already, but saw him last Friday. He was awesome, majestic. I mean, I think he caused 31 swing and misses in his, I don't even know how many pitches he threw, probably like 80 or 90 pitches. I mean, just insane. I mean, the things that he's doing, he has the best changeup in baseball. It's just an insane drop. He's got obviously a power fastball as well that can hum in there at 100 miles an hour. For a lefty to be a power pitcher, I mean, it's a bit more rare. He's incredible. I'm so glad that he's a Detroit Tiger. I hope that we can lock him down long term. By not signing him last year, it's probably going to cost us another, $100 million. I don't care. Hand him a blank check. Hand him a key to the city while you're at it. And head him a grit of the week from both of us, Tarik Skubal.
Yeah, he's a huge Spartan fan too. Like, just give him the checkbook, back up the truck, whatever it takes. So
make him our new AD too in East Lansing. Yeah, whatever it takes, man.
Why not? Okay, so that is our show for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, we want to just give a quick one more apology for last week's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in this week, coming back and giving us another chance. I promise once I do finally get Kyle to move back to Michigan and we are doing these 100% in studio, we will have all the bugs and hiccups figured out by then. In the meantime, you can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler, and my writing at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, or you can watch us on YouTube at Gridiron Report. You can see the sick Malik Beasley shirt I'm wearing here. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That phone number is 313-306-7939. And then if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars. Leave us a review saying so. Make sure you guys download the episode and not just give it a listen, because that's how we're able to track all of our listeners and bring you guys more of the stuff that you guys actually enjoy. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, y'all. Restore the roar and let's go Tigers.
A journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire. Grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on, blast beats thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The gridiron report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow.